Monopoly money has ruined the perception of what the hobby is and what the growth was all about going back a few years. Stick around, my friends. What's going on, sports card hobby family? It's another day. It's another sports card video. Fall is in full swing, moving into winter up here in North Carolina. Starting to cool down. The leaves are falling off the trees. It's that time of the year. Tomorrow is Stranger Things Day, when Will Byers went missing in the original show. So watch out. There might be a trailer, maybe, hopefully, for season 5 coming up. Today we're going to react to a video done by AIH Sports. Raul.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Soothing sounds of Raul, ladies and gentlemen.
I watched it this morning and I thought it was an interesting topic. We've touched on it before, but where do we move forward? How are things going to look in the future? We'll throw out some predictions, as we always do. Huge thanks to our Tuesday shoutouts, justcollect.com. Justcollect.com. If you are looking to sell a collection, you're not sure what it's worth, they've got a very easy appraisal form on their website. All you got to do is go over there, plug in the information. Justcollect.com will take care of you. Leighton Sheldon also has the Just Collect YouTube channel, which offers up a lot of great information, educational, as well as life experience, business experience with him picking up collections and what cards are what, and all that goodness. So definitely check out all of it. Card Capsule. I'm not sure if the code still works, but try it. Shop30. Shop30 gives you 30% off the website. All sorts of deals on card cases, waterproof card cases. Yes, top loaders, penny sleeves, all the goodness. So make sure to check out Card Capsule and use Shop30 at checkout and see if that'll give you 30% off. All right, there's quite a bit of speculation as how did the sports card market boom, the hobby boom, the industry boom? Why did that happen? There's a variety of different factors, and there's a lot of good debate around this, but there are some really obvious signs that Raul talks about here in this video. I thought it was pretty well done. For his channel, I really enjoy the macroeconomic talk, and some will say, oh my God, this has nothing to do with sports cards. I do think that it does. I think that collectibles, sports cards falls under the collectibles bucket, and you can look at a lot of different things, whether it's Rolex watches, sports cards, comic books, action figures. There's a lot of money that has moved into these spaces. There's a few different reasons for it. He's touching on the macroeconomic, the money supply piece in this video and showing a chart that really kind of shows this trending up. And I can remember going back in time. It was probably 2004 to 2006 area time frame. My PayPal account was giving me like 4, 5, 6% in the money market for PayPal. And when did that really all change? It changed dramatically right as we got into 2008 and we had the big subprime mortgage crisis here in the US. And what happened there? The Federal Reserve, they just slashed interest rates basically to zero, which meant that if you had money sitting in the money market, if you had money just sitting in the bank for years and years, we're talking about more than a decade, about 15 years, where you had money sitting in the bank getting you nothing. So what is the result of that? And whether you've got $1,000, whether you've got $10,000, $1 million, if you plop it in your savings account and it gets you 0.8% or 1% and your money just barely gets by, what do? Well, you look at outside opportunities. You're moving it into assets. Now, we can argue whether or not a sports card is considered an asset. Some of them are. A lot of them are liabilities. I think that we can all agree on that. Some of them, of course, look, there's so many cards over time, 100 plus years of sports cards, and there's collectibles as a whole. There are very specific certain collectibles that, yes, they fall into this asset bucket. That, yes, you can see where they would increase in value over time for a variety of different factors. So when interest rates are very, very low, historically low, remember going back a few years, it was buy a house, get a mortgage, all-time low mortgage rates. Mortgage rates at 2.5% fixed for 30 years. That's insanity. When you go back to 1980, when it was literally an 18% mortgage rate. Now compare that to, going back a few years, 2020, where you can get a 30-year fixed for 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%. That's wildly, wildly low, historically speaking. And that's why you'd always hear people saying like, oh, historically low mortgage rates and blah, blah, blah. Well, looking at the chart, when did this change? In 2022, 2.5 years ago, the Federal Reserve raised rates the fastest that had ever been done in our country. They moved them up from basically nothing up to what is it at now? 5% or 5.25% or something like that. And now they brought it back down half a point. They're probably going to do it again here soon. And we'll see how they kind of manage that. Now, one thing that Raul said in his video that I thought was interesting is if they don't increase money supply or big tax cuts, which I just don't see additional tax cuts happening, regardless who wins the election. I don't think that tax cuts are on the horizon. If anything, we're probably going to see tax increases. But I do think that there will be increased money supply. They're going to print more monopoly money, in addition to the fact that I think that they continue to lower rates, and we are going to move into just kind of a hyperinflation type world. You know, I think that a lot of people are thinking, man, there could very well be a big crash, and there could very well be a big crash, but our country can't really afford for there to be a big crash. I talked about this. I've been watching a variety of different folks on this subject on all sides. And another thing I like, Raul talks about, listen to a bunch of different people.
You had honey in your voice tonight, Raul.
Listen to a bunch of different financial analysts. Listen to a bunch of different stock people. Listen to a bunch of crypto people. Listen to all of the people and then draw conclusions from that. And the one that just makes the most sense to me is that we're just going to have to accept the fact that we are going to live in kind of this hyper-inflated world, and eggs are going to be expensive, and gas is probably going to be a little bit more expensive because our government cannot afford for there to be a massive recession. We need the tax revenue. We can't have even more white-collar and blue-collar workers laid off and not paying taxes into the system. Remember, our debt also just continues to grow. Our national debt here in the US continues to grow. It's a spiral. It's a downward spiral. And I also heard Jerome Powell say in some of these meetings that, hey, look, if it gets dire, if we need to do something drastic, we'll fix it, meaning like the economy. And how do they fix it? Print more money, and it's stimulus time. And that's exactly what they did in 2020 during the pandemic, which gave us kind of a false sense of reality. And this is kind of, again, with our sports card hobby, it's a false sense of reality. Now, prices could stay inflated for sports cards. And, here's going to be the sad part is new product prices, they will still stay inflated. Now, as far as, your sports cards that you collect and all of that sort of a thing, they might rise in value, some of them. They also could crash if people just decide to move into other things. They could say, hey, look, you know what? Sports cards are fun. I'm going to keep a few of these cards, but I'm going to move off of a lot of these other things. And if that happens kind of in a wave, then you could see, especially on the high end, you could see movement downward on a lot of high-end cards. Again, go back 5-10 years ago. A lot of these high-end cards are 5x what they used to be, 10x what they used to be, some even more than that. So the idea that couldn't happen, I think that would be short-sighted to think that it cannot happen. Inflation for certain things like gas and eggs and all that stuff, that's people have to consume it. People don't have to consume high-end sports cards. They don't have to consume expensive watches. They don't have to consume expensive graded comic books. They can decide, and they might just decide, hey, look, I want to keep it in assets, just different assets. I'm going to move more money into the stock market. I'm going more money into crypto. I'm going to move more money into other things. And that could very, very well happen. This money sloshes around. The one thing that I will say is if we see some sort of movement upward, big movement upward in 2025, moving into 2026 for cards, I would not just presume that means that, oh my God, the hobby is just so popular and everybody loves cards and that sort of a thing. It could just very well mean exactly kind of what Raul was talking about in this video of we just have increased money supply and that money supply has got to go somewhere. That's essentially what happened in 2020 and 2021. Yes, we did, of course, also have a big boom of middle-aged folks that are just getting back in and really loving the hobby and that sort of a thing. And you did have folks like Gary Vee and Josh Luber and their buddies that were putting huge, huge money into cards in 2018 and 19 and into 2020. And so does that continue on? Or do those high-end buyers move into other things that they want to collect or that they want to invest in or whatever? So as I said, I do think that we're going to live in a hyper-inflated world. I think that that's going to include new product, which again, I think that is going to continue to create a divide between new product pricing and what you're actually getting out of that product, out of those boxes. And at some point, the rubber meets the road. Something's got to give at some point. Right now people are willing to gamble on hobby boxes and breaks and repacks and all the stuff. At some point, though, it's going to hit a place where people are just not going to be able to do it. They're just not going to be able to do it. When will that happen? 2 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? I don't know. And then you might say, oh, well, that's the whole lifeblood of the hobby right now. That's what's keeping the liquidity going, is the repacks and the breaks and people then selling the cards to get out of the break back into the system and all that sort of thing. And maybe partly that's true. Maybe that kind of that circle of life thing will have an effect overall on the entire market if it does wane, which I think that eventually it's going to have to. I don't think it's sustainable for people to continue to do breaks and repacks, even the big money. I think they'll get tired of it. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm going to put a link down below to AIH Sports' video. Some people don't like to listen to the macroeconomic talk and like, oh, but that doesn't pertain to cards. It all is in the same world, guys. All of the money supply. This industry has gone from a little cottage industry to a large one, in large part due to this money supply increase that we saw over the last few years. I'm not trying to say that people are not interested in collecting cards. There's not more participants. There are certainly more participants, people that maybe got in for certain reasons and then stayed in because they just really enjoy it. Absolutely. But the idea that this increased money supply over the last 15 plus years hasn't had an effect on the overall kind of increase in card prices all the way around, I think it would be short-sighted to see that. Now, where will we go moving forward? That's going to be the really interesting piece. All right, friends, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.